Wei Chen stared at the empty rice sack in his small kitchen. He had nothing left to feed his family. Outside, the afternoon sun beat down on his failing farm where crops withered in the dry soil. This was the third bad season in a row. Wei rubbed his rough hands over his tired face. At 45, he looked 20 years older. Life had not been kind to him. His wife, Mai, had been sick for years with an illness that required expensive medicine. The local doctor had stopped giving them credit months ago. In the corner of their small house, his daughter Lin sat by the window. She was 19 years old and blind since birth. Despite her disability, Lin had grown into a beautiful young woman. Her long black hair fell over her shoulders as her fingers moved across the pages of her braille book. Lin could not see the world, but she understood it better than most. "Father, are you worried again?" Lin asked, turning her face toward the sound of his breathing. She always seemed to know what others were feeling. "It's nothing," Wei lied. He couldn't tell her that their landlord had threatened to take their home if they didn't pay what they owed by the end of the week. A knock at the door interrupted them. Wei opened it to find Mr. Huang, the richest man in their province. His expensive suit and shiny car parked outside looked out of place in their poor village. "Mr. Chen," Huang said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "May I come in?" Wei nodded, confused why such an important man would visit his humble home. Huang stepped inside, his gaze immediately falling on Lin by the window. "I was passing through your village and heard your daughter singing at the market yesterday," Huang said. "Her voice is extraordinary." Wei nodded with pride. Lin's singing was indeed beautiful. On market days, she would sing for small coins that helped buy medicine for her mother. "I have a proposition for you," Huang continued, keeping his voice low. "I am looking for a wife, someone special. Your daughter's talent and beauty have captured my interest." Wei felt his stomach tighten. "My daughter? But she is blind, sir." "That matters little to me. I can give her a life of luxury she could never know here." Huang pulled out a thick envelope. "And I would pay you handsomely for your blessing." Wei's hands trembled as Huang placed the envelope on the table. Inside was more money than Wei had ever seen in his life. "With this, you could pay your debts, buy medicine for your wife, and save your farm," Huang said. "All I ask is that Lin comes to live with me as my wife." Wei looked at the money, then at his daughter. He thought of his sick wife and their empty cupboards. What choice did he have? "When would you take her?" Wei asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Tonight," Huang replied. "I have business to attend to and must return to the city." That evening, Wei helped Lin pack her few belongings. He couldn't bring himself to tell her the full truth. He only said that a wealthy man wanted to marry her and give her a better life. "But father, I don't know this man," Lin said, tears falling from her unseeing eyes. "He will take good care of you," Wei promised, though doubt gnawed at his heart. As Huang's car drove away with Lin inside, Wei clutched the envelope of money. He had sold his daughter to save his family, but something about Huang's cold eyes and quick arrangements left him feeling uneasy. Wei did not sleep that night, and as darkness deepened, he made a decision that would change everything. Lin sat quietly in the back of Mr. Huang's expensive car. She could feel the smooth leather seats beneath her fingers, so different from the rough wooden chairs at home. The car smelled of something she didn't recognize, a sharp, clean scent that hurt her nose a little. "We will arrive at my estate in about 2 hours," Mr. Huang said from the front seat. His driver remained silent as they traveled along bumpy country roads that eventually became smooth highways. Lin's heart beat fast with fear. Everything had happened so quickly. One moment she was at home with her parents, and the next, she was being taken away by a stranger. Her father had whispered to her that this was for the best, that Mr. Huang would give her a good life. But Lin could hear the doubt in his voice. "Mr. Huang," Lin said softly, "may I ask why you chose me as your wife? You could have any woman. Why a blind village girl?" There was a long pause before he answered. "Your voice. When I heard you singing in the market, I knew you were special. Beauty that cannot be seen is the truest kind." His words should have comforted her, but something in his tone made Lin shiver. She clutched the small jade pendant around her neck, the only thing her grandmother had left her. As they drove, Lin tried to keep track of the turns and stops, but soon became lost in the unfamiliar journey. Without sight, she relied on her other senses to understand the world. Now, surrounded by new sounds and smells, She felt more helpless than ever. "We're approaching the city," Mr. Huang announced after some time. Lin could hear the change. More cars, people talking, music playing from shops. The sounds of her quiet village faded into memory. The car finally stopped. Lin heard the driver exit and open her door. A gentle breeze touched her face as she stepped out, holding tightly to the arm offered to her. "Watch your step," a woman's voice said, not Mr. Huang's. "I'm Mrs. Zhang, a housekeeper. I'll show you to your room." Lin was led through what must have been an enormous house. Her footsteps echoed on marble floors. The air smelled of flowers and polish. Mrs. Zhang described each room as they passed: the grand entrance hall, the dining room that could seat 30 people, the library with books from floor to ceiling. "This will be your room for now," Mrs. Zhang said, opening a door. Lin felt her way inside. The bed was soft when she touched it, with silky sheets and many pillows. "Mr. Huang has arranged new clothes for you," Mrs. Zhang continued. "He would like you to rest now. Tomorrow, he will show you around properly." After Mrs. Zhang left, Lin sat on the edge of the bed, trying not to cry. She ran her fingers over the jade pendant at her neck, thinking of home. A soft knock at the door startled her. "Come in," she called. "It's just me again," Mrs. Zhang said. "I brought you some dinner. You must be hungry after your journey." Lin thanked her and accepted the tray. As she ate the unfamiliar but delicious food, she heard Mrs. Zhang moving around the room. "Mrs. Zhang," Lin asked, "how many other people live here?" There was a pause. "Mr. Huang lives alone, except for the staff. And now you, of course." "And are there other women here? Other wives?" Mrs. Zhang's voice became stiff. "No, but there are other young ladies staying in another part of the house. Guests of Mr. Huang. You won't be meeting them." Lin set down her spoon, her appetite gone. Something was very wrong. "Rest now," Mrs. Zhang said, taking the tray. "And please, stay in your room tonight. The house is large, and it would be easy for you to get lost." As the door closed and locked from the outside, Lin realized with horror that she wasn't a bride. She was a prisoner. Mr. Huang sat in his luxurious office, swirling expensive whiskey in a crystal glass. His real name was not Huang. That was just one of many names he used in his business dealings. The walls of his office were lined with photographs of him shaking hands with important people: politicians, business leaders, and police officials. These connections protected him and his secret business. He checked his gold watch. It was nearly midnight. Soon his newest investment would be moved from the upstairs bedroom to the basement where the others waited. The blind girl from the village would fetch a high price. Her beauty was rare, and her singing voice would be considered a special talent by his wealthy clients. "Sir, is it time?" asked Feng, his most trusted guard. Huang nodded. "Yes, bring her down with the others. The buyers will be here tomorrow evening to make their selections." Feng bowed slightly and left the office. Huang didn't handle these matters himself anymore. That's what he paid people like Feng for, to do the dirty work while he kept his hands clean. Meanwhile, Lin sat in her locked room, listening carefully to every sound in the strange house. After Mrs. Zhang left, she had explored the room with her hands, trying to understand her surroundings. She found a large window, but it wouldn't open. The door was solid and locked from outside. There was a bathroom attached to her room, but no other exits. Lin's sensitive hearing picked up footsteps approaching her door. She quickly moved back to sit on the bed, pretending to be asleep. The door opened. "Get up," a man's rough voice commanded. It wasn't Mr. Huang. "Come with me now." Lin pretended to wake up, confused. "Where are we going? Where is Mr. Huang?" "Don't ask questions," the man said, grabbing her arm. His grip was painful. "Move quietly or you'll be sorry." Lin allowed herself to be led from the room, counting steps and memorizing turns as they walked through the house. Down a long hallway, then down a staircase, 23 steps. The air became cooler and damp. They were going underground. A heavy door creaked open, and Lin was pushed inside. The smell hit her immediately. Too many people in a small space, fear, and sickness. The door locked behind her. "Hello," Lin called softly into the darkness. "Is anyone here?" Another one, a tired female voice, replied in Chinese. "Welcome to hell." Lin moved carefully forward, hands outstretched. "My name is Lin. Where are we?" A younger voice spoke up. "We're waiting to be sold. I've been here 2 weeks. I'm Mai." Lin found a wall and slid down to sit on the cold floor. Around her, she could hear the breathing of several women. "Sold? But Mr. Huang said you wanted to marry me." Bitter laughter came from across the room. "He tells everyone different stories. I was promised a job as a housekeeper. Ling was offered work as a nanny. Mai was told she would be a model." Lin felt sick. Her father had sold her, not to a husband, but to a monster. "How many of us are there?" she asked. "8 now, with you," Meg replied. "2 girls were taken away last week. They never came back." Another woman, who hadn't spoken yet, began to cry softly. "Tomorrow night is the auction. They will bring men to look at us like animals at a market." Lin clutched her grandmother's jade pendant. In that moment, she made a silent promise to herself. She would not become a victim. Somehow, she would escape this place. Above them, in his office, Huan finished his whiskey and looked at the security monitor showing the basement room. 8 young women, including the blind girl from the village, would bring him enough money to retire if he wanted to, but business was too good to stop now. He picked up his phone to call his buyers. "The merchandise is ready for viewing tomorrow," he said smoothly. "I believe you'll be very pleased with this collection." Why could not sleep? He sat at his kitchen table, the envelope of money untouched before him. His wife Lin's mother slept in the next room, her breathing troubled even with the new medicine he had bought that afternoon. "What have I done?" Wei whispered to himself, his rough hands covering his face. The house felt empty without Lin's gentle presence. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw her face as she was taken away, trying to be brave, but her unseeing eyes filled with tears. Something about Mr. Huang had bothered Wade from the start. His smile never reached his eyes. He had been too eager, too quick with his money. And why would such a wealthy man want a blind village girl for his wife? Why remembered the stories? Stories he had ignored because they seemed like village gossip. Young women from nearby towns disappearing. A farmer's daughter who went to work in the city and never returned. A cousin who wrote letters home for 3 months, then silence. "No," Wei said, standing up suddenly. His chair scraped against the floor. "No, no, no." He went to the old trunk in the corner and pulled out a box hidden at the bottom. Inside was a hunting knife from his younger days, when he had tracked animals in the mountains. Before the accident that had damaged his leg and forced him to become a farmer. Wei strapped the knife to his belt and grabbed a flashlight. He looked in on his sleeping wife one more time. "I will bring her back," he promised softly. "Whatever it takes." Outside, the night was dark and moonless, perfect for what he needed to do. Wei walked to the edge of the village where his neighbor Chen kept his motorcycle. Chen had always said Wei could borrow it if needed. Tonight was such a night. Wei had paid attention when Huang's car left. He had seen which road they took. It would be a long ride to the city, but he had to try. As Wei sped through the night, his mind raced with terrible thoughts. What if he was too late? What if Huang had already hurt Lin? What if the rumors about missing girls were true? 3 hours later, exhausted and cold, Wei reached the city. Finding Huang's estate wasn't difficult. Everyone knew where the rich man lived. It was a huge property on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by high walls with security cameras. Wei parked the motorcycle in a hidden spot and studied the estate from a distance. Guards patrolled the grounds. Dogs barked somewhere inside. This would not be easy. Wei remembered his hunting days. He had been patient then, tracking animals for days sometimes. He would need that patience now. He circled the property, looking for weaknesses in the security. Near the back, he found a large tree with branches extending over the wall. The guards seemed to pass this area less frequently. Wei waited for his moment, then climbed the tree with difficulty, his bad leg aching with the effort. At the top, he could see into the estate grounds. The main house was enormous, with many windows. Some were lit despite the late hour. As he prepared to drop down from the wall, a sound caught his attention. A van approached the back entrance of the house. Wei flattened himself against the wall and watched. 2 men got out, speaking in low voices. They opened the van's back doors. Wei caught his breath as he saw what was inside. 3 young women, their hands bound, looking terrified. "Get them inside quickly," one man said. "The boss wants them processed before morning." In that moment, we knew. The rumors were true. Huan wasn't looking for a wife. He was trafficking women. And Lin, his blind, innocent daughter, was somewhere inside that house. Wei's hands trembled with rage and fear. He had sold his own daughter to a monster, but he would make it right or die trying. As the men led the captive women into the house through a basement entrance, we slipped over the wall. There was no turning back now. Wei moved through the shadows of the estate like a ghost. His years of hunting had taught him how to step silently, how to blend with darkness. Even with his bad leg, he made little noise as he approached the main house. The basement door where the women had been taken was now locked. Wei circled the building, keeping close to the walls, ducking beneath windows when necessary. He needed to find another way in. A guard patrolled nearby, his flashlight sweeping across the garden. Wei pressed himself against the wall, hardly daring to breathe. The guard passed without noticing him. Wei continued around the house until he found a small window at ground level, partially hidden by bushes. It was slightly open, letting in fresh air. Wei peered inside. It looked like a kitchen, dark and empty at this late hour. With careful movements, Wei pushed the window wider and pulled himself through, dropping quietly onto the kitchen floor. He paused, listening for any sound of alarm. The house remained quiet except for the distant hum of machines. Wei took out his flashlight, but didn't turn it on yet. He needed to search the house without being caught. Where would they keep Lin and the other women? He remembered the basement entrance he had seen earlier. If he could find stairs leading down, he might find his daughter. Wei moved through the kitchen into a hallway. The house was huge, with many doors and corridors. He opened doors carefully, finding storage rooms, a laundry room, and what looked like staff quarters. No one was awake at this hour. Finally, Wei found what he was looking for, a heavy door with a lock. Next to it was a security panel with a red light. Wei examined the lock. It would be impossible to open without the code. Frustrated, Wei continued searching. There had to be another way down to the basement. In what appeared to be Mr. Huang's office, Wei found a desk with security monitors. Each screen showed a different part of the house and grounds. Wei's heart jumped when he saw one screen showing a room full of women. Some were sleeping on mats on the floor. Others sat awake, talking quietly. And there was Lin. His daughter sat against a wall, her face turned toward another woman who was speaking to her. She was alive. Wei studied the other monitors, trying to understand the layout of the house. He needed to find where that room was. One monitor showed guards in a security room. They were watching the same camera feeds Wei was seeing now. If he wasn't careful, they would spot him. Wei turned to leave the office when his foot hit something metal. A can of lighter fluid had fallen from a shelf. Wei picked it up, an idea forming in his mind. Next to it was a box of matches. Huang was not just a trafficker. He was a monster who bought and sold human beings. How many lives had he destroyed? How many families torn apart? Wei made a terrible decision. He would create a distraction big enough to throw the entire estate into chaos. In that confusion, he would find the basement and rescue Lin and the others. He took the lighter fluid and matches and moved quickly to a room filled with papers and boxes. It looked like a storage room for documents. Wei poured the fluid over the boxes and struck a match. "Forgive me," he whispered, not sure who he was asking forgiveness from. The gods, his ancestors, or his daughter. The fire caught quickly, spreading across the papers. Wei slipped out of the room and closed the door, hoping to delay discovery of the fire while it grew. Within minutes, smoke began to fill the hallway. An alarm suddenly blared throughout the house, its high-pitched wail breaking the night's silence. Wei ducked into a side room as guards ran past, shouting about fire. In the confusion, no one noticed a limping man making his way toward the back of the house, searching for another way to the basement. The fire spread faster than Wei had intended. Soon, flames were visible through the windows, and black smoke billowed into the night sky. "Lin," Wei thought desperately, "hold on. I'm coming for you." In the basement, Lin and the other women heard the alarm blaring through the house. They felt the panic before they understood what was happening. "Fire! The house is on fire!" someone shouted from above. The women in the basement looked at each other with fear and confusion. Mai grabbed Lin's hand. "What's happening?" Lin asked, her sensitive ears picking up the sounds of running feet and shouting voices above them. "There's a fire upstairs," Mai explained. "But they've locked us down here." The other women began to panic, pounding on the heavy door and screaming for help. The acrid smell of smoke began to seep into the basement. "They're going to leave us here to die," one woman sobbed. Lynn squeezed May's hand. "No, we can't think like that. Someone will come." Outside the basement door, chaos had taken over the house. Guards ran in all directions, some fighting the fire, others grabbing valuable items to save, and some simply fleeing. In the confusion, no one thought about the women locked in the basement. Wei moved through the smoke-filled hallways, covering his mouth with his shirt. The fire had grown much larger than he expected. Flames licked at the ceiling in some parts of the house, and thick black smoke made it hard to see. He had to find another way to the basement. The main entrance was still locked, and now the fire blocked his path back to it. Wei stumbled into what looked like a servant's area. There, he found what he was searching for, a narrow staircase leading down. This must be how the staff brought food and supplies to the basement. As Wei descended the stairs, he heard women's voices crying out for help. He reached a small door at the bottom and found it locked from his side. Wei unlatched it and pulled it open. He found himself in a storage area connected to the main basement. Through another door, he could hear the women. "Help! We're locked in here," they called. Wei rushed to the door and peered through a small window. Inside, he saw several young women crowded together. Among them was Lin, her face turned toward the sound of his movements. "Lin, Wei called out, his voice rough from smoke. Lin's face changed from fear to disbelief. "Father? Is that you?" "Stand back from the door," Wei instructed all of them. He examined the lock. It was strong, but the hinges looked weak. Wei took out his hunting knife and began to work on the hinges. Above them, the fire continued to spread. The smoke was getting thicker in the basement now. Some of the women were coughing. With a final hard push, Wei broke through the hinges and pulled the door open. The women rushed toward the exit. "Lin, I'm here," Wei said, finding his daughter in the crowd. He embraced her tightly. "I'm so sorry. I never should have let you go." Lin clung to her father. "You came for me. You really came." "We need to leave now," Wei told everyone. "The house is burning. Follow me closely." Wei led the 8 women up the narrow stairs. The smoke was much worse now. Everyone covered their mouths and noses with pieces of clothing. When they reached the main floor, they found parts of it already engulfed in flames. The heat was intense, and breathing became difficult. "Stay low," Wei instructed. "Crawl if you have to. Head toward the kitchen at the back." Wei held Lin's hand, guiding her through the burning house. May helped the other women follow. In the kitchen, Wei helped everyone through the window he had entered earlier. One by one, the women escaped into the garden. Just as Wei was helping Lin through the window, a voice shouted behind them. "Stop right there." Wei turned to see Feng, Huang's head of security, pointing a gun at them. His face was smeared with soot, and his eyes were wild with anger. "You did this," Feng snarled at Wei. "You started the fire." Wei pushed Lin through the window to safety. "Run," he told the women outside. "Get as far away as you can." As the women fled into the darkness, Wei faced Feng alone in the burning kitchen. The roof above them creaked ominously, ready to collapse at any moment. The kitchen was now filled with thick smoke. Flames licked at the doorway, creeping closer to where Wei and Feng stood facing each other. The heat was unbearable, sweat pouring down both men's faces. "You've destroyed everything," Feng shouted over the roar of the fire. His gun remained pointed at Wei's chest. "Mr. Huang will kill me for this." Wei stood his ground, thinking quickly. Outside, he could hear the women running to safety. Lin was safe now, that was all that mattered. "It's over, Feng," Wei said. "Let me go. The police will be here soon." Feng laughed bitterly. "Police? Mr. Huang owns the local police. No one will help you." A burning beam crashed down nearby, sending sparks flying through the air. Both men jumped back. "This place is about to collapse," Wei said. "We'll both die if we stay." "Better to die than face Mr. Huang's punishment," Feng replied, his finger tightening on the trigger. Wei tensed, ready to dodge. But before Feng could fire, a loud explosion rocked the house. The gas line had ignited in another part of the building. The force knocked both men off their feet. Wei's ears rang from the blast. Through the smoke, he saw Feng struggling to get up, the gun still in his hand. Wei lunged forward, tackling him to the ground. They fought desperately, rolling across the burning kitchen floor. Feng was younger and stronger, but Wei fought with the strength of a father protecting his child. He grabbed Feng's wrist, slamming it against the floor until the gun fell from his grip. The weapon skidded across the floor, stopping near the blazing doorway. Both men scrambled for it. Feng reached it first, but as he turned to aim at Wei, another beam collapsed from the ceiling, crashing down on Feng's legs. Feng screamed in pain, trapped beneath the burning wood. The gun fell from his hand again. Wei grabbed it and backed away. "Help me," Feng begged, his anger turning to fear. "Please, I don't want to die like this." Wei hesitated. This man had helped imprison his daughter and countless other women. He deserved no mercy. But Wei was not a killer. Setting the gun aside, Wei grabbed the beam and tried to lift it. It was incredibly heavy and hot to the touch. His hands burned as he strained against the weight. "I can't move it alone," Wei said. "Push while I lift." Together, they managed to shift the beam just enough for Feng to pull his legs free. His pants were burned away, revealing badly injured legs underneath. "You won't be able to walk," Wei told him. Suddenly, they'd heard sirens in the distance. Someone had called the fire department. "Mr. Huang will be looking for me," Feng said, his voice shaking with pain and fear. "You'll find me, and you'll kill me for letting this happen." "Then come with us," Wei said, surprising himself with the offer. "Testify against Huang. Help the other women he's taken." Feng stared at Wei in disbelief. "Why would you help me after what I did?" "Because my daughter taught me that mercy matters," Wei replied. "Now decide quickly. We're running out of time." The kitchen ceiling began to cave in. Wei helped Feng to his feet, supporting him as they limped toward the window. Outside, Wei was surprised to see Lin waiting with Mai. "Father," Lin called. "I knew you were still inside. I could hear you." "Help me with him," Wei said as he pushed Feng through the window. The other women had disappeared into the night, but Lin and Mai had stayed. Together, they carried the injured Feng away from the burning house just as fire trucks arrived. Neighbors had gathered on the street, watching in horror as the mansion burned. In the confusion, no one paid attention to the small group slipping away into the darkness. They needed to get as far from there as possible before Mr. Huang arrived. "Where will we go?" Lin asked as they made their way through back streets. "Somewhere safe," Wei promised, though he had no idea where that might be. "Somewhere he can't find us." Behind them, flames consumed what remained of Huang's empire, but the real fight was just beginning. 3 months later, we sat in a small courtroom in the provincial capital. The wooden bench was hard beneath him, but he barely noticed the discomfort. His attention was fixed on his daughter Lin, who sat at the witness stand, her voice clear and strong as she told her story. "I was kept in a basement with 7 other women," Lin explained. "We were told we would be sold to men in other countries." The courtroom was silent except for her voice and the occasional scratch of the judge's pen. In the defendant's box sat Mr. Huang, his expensive suit replaced by prison clothes, his confident smile now gone. The trial had been front-page news for weeks. When Feng had decided to testify against his former boss, providing names, dates, and locations of Huang's trafficking network, the case had become too big for even Huang's connections to bury. Wei looked at Feng, who sat in a wheelchair in the row behind the prosecutor. His legs were healing slowly. He would never walk normally again, but he had found a kind of freedom in telling the truth. After escaping the burning mansion that night, Wei had taken Lin Nai and the injured Feng to the provincial capital, bypassing the local police whom Huang controlled. There, they found an honest detective who listened to their story and protected them while the investigation began. The other women who escaped that night had been found and brought to safety. Some had returned to their families. Others, with nowhere to go, had been given shelter by aid organizations. As Lin finished her testimony, the judge asked if she wanted to add anything more. "I just want to say," Lin said, her unseeing eyes somehow finding her father in the crowd, "that even in the darkest places, there can be light. My father taught me that when he came back for me." Wei felt tears in his eyes. The shame of having sold his daughter would never fully leave him, but Lin had forgiven him. That was more than he deserved. After the court session ended for the day, Wei, Lin, and Mai walked out together. They now lived in a small apartment in the city, provided by the government while the trial continued. Wei had found work as a night watchman, and Lin had started teaching music to children. The prosecutor says Tuong will go to prison for at least 20 years, Mai told them as they walked home. Mai had become like family to them, having nowhere else to go after her rescue. It's not enough, Wei said quietly. Not for what he did to so many women. Lin took her father's arm, but his network is broken. The police have rescued more women from other places he owned. That matters more than how long he stays in prison. Wei nodded. His daughter had always been wiser than him. That evening, they sat together for dinner in their small apartment. It was nothing like their village home. They had made it comfortable with simple furniture and plants that Lin could smell and touch. I received a letter today, Lin said as they ate. The women's shelter wants me to come sing for them next week. They say music helps the women who are recovering. You should go, Wei encouraged. Your voice has always been healing. Lin smiled. I've been thinking about something bigger too. With the reward money from Huang's arrest, we could start our own shelter. A place for women like me, who need to find their strength again. Wei looked at his daughter with pride. The terrible night that had almost destroyed them had instead revealed Lin's true strength. She had turned her pain into purpose. If that's what you want, then we'll make it happen, Wei promised. Later, as the city lights came on outside their window, we watched Lin playing a small bamboo flute, her fingers moving gracefully over the holes. Her music filled their new home with hope. The nightmare was over. Justice, while imperfect, had been served. And from the ashes of that terrible night, something good had grown. A family bound not by blood alone, but by courage, sacrifice, and love.